Welcome to my full lower body 25-minute static stretch routine. All you need to join in is a thick yoga mat. And I specify thick because we're going to spend a lot of time on our knees in some of these stretches and exercises, and it's really important that one of those thin yoga mats on a hard ground isn't all the cushion you have for that kneecap. So let's get right into it because there's a ton of different exercises here. We're going to start out on our elbows in a nice groin stretch. I'm going to do my best to time each one for about 30 seconds and just relax and breathe into it. If you notice in this groin stretch, I'm trying to keep my feet in line with my knees. So it's not tucked in under my hips. I have it pulled out. And on top of that, I get some tibial rotation by pulling those heels out. It might internally rotate those femurs and be a little bit hard as well, but the heels aren't flat on the ground. I pull them out so it's all in line. So we're still on our elbows, 30 seconds. And then we're gonna switch to on our hands for 30 seconds. Just relax, breathe, open up those hips. Now, I'm shooting for about an 8 out of 10 on how much stretch I want. So it's uncomfortable, but it's not painful. And most importantly, it's a stretch that I can feel it in the muscle group that I'm trying to stretch. Good, we're gonna switch to, I have to knock my knees in just a little bit, but I'm trying to rock back. I'm still trying to open up that groin. I'm just not that mobile in this stretch. Other stretches I will be, but this one is my, one of the exercises I really need to work on. So all we're doing is rocking our hips back for 30 seconds, breathing in this stretch. And again, I had to knock my knees in. I'm still trying to pull my heels out. Feet are in line with my knees. But yeah, like I was saying, go ahead, rock your hips forward now. And then I can go real wide for forward. Like I was saying, I want it to be a strong enough feeling that it's a little uncomfortable. You need some stimulus to be able to tell the brain to decrease tonicity to that muscle group. So breathe into the stomach, try to relax, allow yourself to get into this range of motion. But at the same time, I don't want you subconsciously twisting off and actually torquing the joint itself rather than the muscle group because it's so painful. So there is a way to overdo it, and you don't need to do that. Just breathe. This is about 25 minutes. We're holding each stretch and good. We're holding each stretch for 30 seconds, which is pretty much the bare minimum to increase flexibility, but we have tons of redundancies here. Just take the groin stretch, for example. I'm still on my hands, my toes pointed forward, knee and foot are in line here. I'm rocking back a little bit and I'll feel the stretch a little lower and long through that adductor groin. But like I was saying, it's we've already done 5 or 6 groin stretches here, so that's 2.5 minutes of groin stretching. Breathe, relax, go ahead, switch sides, shooting for 30 seconds each thing. So this actually is going to be that acceptable range for increasing flexibility, but you can always run through this video a second time if you got 50 minutes. But I prefer to just do it once or twice a day or 2 or 3 times a week to really increase my flexibility. And hopefully making this video will keep me a little bit more accountable, and I'll make sure to get these stretches in, long static stretching in each week. Leg out to the side. Now this is our first exercise. I'm going to adjust the camera that I'm using. It's not necessary, but I got a couch. You could use a chair, some type of elevated surface. So that way, in this big lateral lunge stretch that we're going to get into, I can kind of deload. You totally don't need it. You could totally put your hands on the ground. You could get some textbooks or books. You could put your arms on a chair. But the idea is your hips are pushed back. My hips are pushed back. They're not forward. And I'm stretching that groin out 30 seconds. Still stretching the groin, but now with a little bit more force and tension. And then you can even just sit down if you were struggling with it. Sit down. You could be up tall, however you want to get into this position and hold. But again, my hips are back and I'm opening up those hips. Go ahead, switch sides. Relax, breathe. Like I said, you don't need an elevated surface for this stretch. The couch stretch at the end, it's preferable that you do. So I kind of misspoke, said all you need is a yoga mat and then this video to follow along to. But really it'd be nice to have a chair or something to prop up your heel in some of these stretches. Breathe, relax, open those hips up. Again, you can deload off something. You can put your hands straight on the ground in this stretch, but we're holding 30 seconds. Good, and then the last one, we're going splits. And again, you can try to hold something to work on it. I'm pushing those hips back. Couple major things here. It's easy to do right if you push your hips back, knees out, and maintain pressure on the inside of that foot. So I'm not caving to the outside of my foot and my knees don't cave in. I'm really opening up those hips. Take some deep breaths into your stomach. Good, relax. So that's good enough for groin and adductors. So we're gonna jump from all those groin stretches to now a bunch of quad, hip flexor, anterior leg stretches. So I just have us in the couch position and I'm rocking those hips forward. So I'm gonna time this for 30 seconds, go. And I just have my foot elevated, knee on the mat, other legs forward. I have a tight core, so that's called a posterior pelvic tilt. That will tension that hip flexor and quad a little bit more. And I'm rocking those hips forward. So we're gonna hold this for 30 seconds. Now you can tell my mat I can adjust because it's foldable. I'm a big proponent for this mat. The link's down in the description of the video. And I use that for the pigeon stretch as well. But you don't need that, but a thick mat for this kneecap is very important. Go ahead, you're gonna stay on this side, but now you're gonna rock back. So we're in this quad stretch, but I'm rocking back and I'm trying to touch my heel to my glute. And it's really gonna open up now the quad more than that hip flexor because I'm really flexing at the knee more. Tight core, breathe, 30 seconds here as well. Let's go 10 more seconds. Stretch that quad out. Good, we're gonna switch sides and do both of those quad hip flexor stretches on the other leg. So the first one is leaning forward, tight core, brace the abs. And you can always add in a little up arm stretch as well. Reaching up, but without extending at that lumbar. I want your hip is extended, but I don't want your lower back to extend. That's just taking away tension. So tight core, squeeze the abs. I'm pushing my hips forward and I'm reaching up, stretching that hip flexor. Now 30 seconds, go ahead, try to pull yourself back. Sit that heel nice and close to that glute. If you have any questions about these stretches, how to do them, am I doing them right, blah, 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 just reach out. I'm free whenever. I'll get back to you. If you take a picture or you go, I'm not feeling that, I'm feeling that more in a joint issue or something like that, let me know because you really want to make sure you're doing these right, especially if you're spending all this time and effort into static stretching. Good, so that's it for our couch stretch. Now we're gonna do a reverse Nordic. I'm not very good at this. All we're gonna do is just try to sit on our heels pretty much. I have to lean forward. I've had too many knee surgeries and there's no way I could even come close to this much knee flexion, especially underweight. But the idea is bending the knee that much underweight, and you can always do a real Nordic is like leaning back. And so you could do it, maybe I can show you here. You would do it like this for the 30 seconds. You'll lean back on your elbows or lean back here, and you'll get a much better quad stretch. So I'm gonna start that 30 seconds. about 10 seconds ago. We'll do 20 seconds in case you were adjusting and trying to figure out the best quad stretch here. Again, my hips, knees, and feet are in line. I'm not bowed in or bowed out. Breathe, relax, hang out. And we got a few more quad stretches because this a lot of times is the limiting factor in some of our mobility motions, especially after sitting so long during the day. All right, for this next quad stretch, we're laying on our side. We're gonna grab the foot with our opposite hand, and we're gonna use our body weight to push that hip back, and we're stretching the quad of the leg that's down. Now, the most common mistake I see here is really torquing their spine, rolling those hips forward. Try to stay kind of square. You can rock a little bit to find the right position. But again, I'm not trying to twist into the stretch. I'm trying to really find that quad to get opened up. Good, we're gonna switch sides. And you can, and again, don't twist the knee either by pulling that foot weird. Just relax. Use the ground and the pressure of the ground to stretch out that quad. We're going 30 seconds here as well. Laying on our side, breathing, use the ground to push that knee back, pull that heel towards the glute. And the whole time, maintaining tight core so that posterior pelvic tilt is loading up that quad in the stretch. Good. And then the last quad stretch we're gonna do is a little bit functional. And all it is, and you can do this with some deload elevation things like this couch, foam roller. You can do it with nothing, just holding this deep stretch. And then as a final regression, you can do it right here with that knee down, opening here. But try to add pressure if you're in this regression. Ready? Let's say we're at 10 seconds. Try to add pressure so it's functional. You can be up, you can hold. I even like sitting on the side of the couch. But the idea is I'm putting pressure through the toes and through the toes here and heel of this front leg to really force that muscle and hip to open up. Go ahead, switch sides, same thing. We're here, we're trying to be upright. So put your hand on the side of the chair or couch. Put your knee down if you need to. But again, or sit right on the edge of the bed. However you need to open up that hip under weight. Your body's going to be a lot more receptive to these stretches if not only are you stretching, but you're loading at the same time. Breathe, relax. I'm trying to be upright. And again, if you can hold 30 seconds here, that's the most impressive. That's all your weight. That muscle's being told, hey, I need you to stretch, but also activate at the same time. Good. We're going to move on to internal and external rotation. I'm going to show you without the mat so you can see me on flat ground. But all this is the 90-90-90 stretch. It looks easy. I was so far from ever being able to get here 2 years ago. I started out on my elbow, and even then I could barely get my knees to touch the ground. Now I'm up to the point where I can talk, relax, breathe into my stomach, and even lift my hands up. But all I want is 90 degrees here. Let's go ahead. Keep forgetting to start the watch for us. But it's okay if we get a couple extra seconds in each one of these stretches. 90 degrees here, 90 degrees from my femurs, and 90 degrees on that back leg. I'm asking this femur, this back leg, to be an internal rotation, front leg to be an external rotation, and rotating will stress each one a little bit more. So we're trying to breathe. Now, I'm gonna have us hang out here for a little bit longer on each side, just because how important I think this stretch is, and just progressing and getting better at this. If you're on your elbow and you can work here, you might have an overactive hip on this back hip. It keeps tightening up and grabbing. Insufficient activity over there. That's totally normal. And I'm not showing you any of these dynamic movements, these lifts or anything like that, because today's just static. But you should be incorporating, go ahead, switch sides, 90-90-90. These into your everyday workouts, resistance training routines. So this static stretch routine I'm going to start the watch, is in addition to making sure you're hitting all your cardio and conditioning requirements for the week. You have a good weight training program. The weight training program has dynamic warm-ups and cool-downs. You're going through full range of motion and stretching in the bottom of some of these lifts. All of that stuff should really be priority number one. All right, that was about a minute on each side. That's how important I think that 90-90-90 stretch is. And if you are great at any of these stretches, you're like, oh, this is nothing, then you do need to work on the not only being receptive in that range of motion, but being functional and strong in that range of motion. So being able to come out of it, all that stuff. And if you want a program that incorporates that stuff into your weight training, just let me know. That's what I do in those warm-ups and cool-downs before we get into our compound lifts. But yeah, and again, if you're having no issue in some of these stretches, then skip it, spend some extra time on the stretches that you do need. So this next one is the hardest one for me to show. It's just a pigeon stretch. It's easier to show in person or on something, but I'm just trying to, the biggest thing is I'm not driving this knee forward and just laying on this hip. I'm trying to externally rotate my femur, pull that foot across, relax and sit down and stretch that front leg hip, outside back hip of that leg. 30 seconds in this pigeon stretch. When I first did this, really struggled. That's why you see my knee elevated, why I really appreciate having this stackable, foldable mat. But you can always use pillows. You might not need this. Some people can just get into this pigeon stretch here that I really struggle to get into unless I have an elevated knee. But again, I'm trying to kind of sweep that foot across, not forward. It's not how high can I get my knee. I'm trying to pull it across so we can stretch that hip. Go ahead, switch sides. Again, I'm sweeping that foot across. You can see that there. I try to leave my knee on this side of my body. If I'm doing my right knee, it's on my right side of the body. I don't try to see how far it goes under, and I just end up stretching my lower back. Again, this is all lower body stretching, trying to stretch the outside back of that front leg hip. Breathe, relax, stretch it out. And I don't want any tension in that knee. This is a great example of a stretch that you could find it in the right muscle, in that hip, or if you're doing it wrong, you're going to find it twisting that kneecap. We don't want that. There you go. That's 30 seconds for each pigeon. Now we're going to go laying knee hugs. This is a lot more common. I like to support my knee, both knees. So again, I'm not feeling the stretch across the knee at any point. It's all in that hip capsule. And I breathe, relax, and I stretch it out here. 30 seconds. You can make it a little dynamic if you would like and pull across. But today, since it's static stretching, we're not twisting, no rotation. Good, we're gonna just hold each one of these. And then about 30 seconds on the other side. Hold it, supporting each knee. Good stretch. Try to relax. Find out what side's tighter for all of these. You might have one side that you only need to do for 15 seconds because you're so mobile, arguably hypermobile on one side, and the other side you're so stiff. Especially if you're in an asymmetric sport, like a racket sport or a swinging sport, throwing sport, anything like that. Good. So we got both sides on the line, and then the last one we're going to do, and one of my favorites because it feels great on the SI joint in the back, is just hip rocks. I'm just rocking back and forth. I'll show you from the front. My feet are back and out to the side, but I'm kind of trying to touch my knees, so I'm in big internal rotation here on my femurs. And a good 30 seconds gives me a nice burn and puts me in a range of motion on internal rotation here that I just normally never get into. It's right in those hips, feels kind of funny, but just relax and stretch that out. Just breathe, you can just hold it. Move it back and forth. You can drive out for a couple just to feel that again. hang out there. And good. That's all we got for internal, external rotation. We're going to move on to a bunch of hamstring. And this sometimes is where people really struggle. Some good hamstring stretches. Jump up with. Okay, now time for some good old hamstring stretches. We're going to go heel elevated. I'm rolling those hips square. I'm internally rotating that femur so I can stretch that whole posterior chain of that hamstring. If you have really tight calves, I'd say prop your toes up against the back of that couch or chair. You can always do this on the ground if you don't have that elevated surface. But just try to breathe 30 seconds in this stretch. I'm going flat back the whole time. So I can barely get a lean. If I went here, I could get a nice lean. But a leg elevated, this is about as much hip flexion as I can get. You might get a lot more, but try to roll that hip forward. Breathe and stretch. 10 more seconds in this stretch, and then we'll switch sides. Relax, breathe, stretch that hamstring. Toes are pulled up, and I'm keeping a flat back the whole time. Good. Switch sides, same thing here. And again, I'm not stretching. We're going to do a rounded back stretch to get a little bit of lumbar, but for this first one, try your best to get a flat back. Open that leg up, nice stretch. Flat back, push the hips back, 30 seconds. Pulling those toes up a little bit so that calf gets stretched too. Breathe, relax. And the big thing is I'm not turned. I'm trying to get as square as possible to open up that posterior chain. Breathe. Good, we got both sides. Now we're gonna move on to that rounded back one I was talking about. And I'm gonna go toes elevated. You can't see this, but I'm gonna lay the mat down and I'm putting my toes on it. You could use a towel, you could use a stair, but this just gives you even more of that calf stretch if that calf and ankle mobility is your issue. So we're gonna go 30 seconds, and you're just gonna reach down, relax, completely flat. This is a good time. You can work your fingers and your toes so you can splay those toes out, because even foot mobility is important here as well. So just relax. We're going 30 seconds. I'm nice and rounded, but still knees, feet, and hips in line, and just my toes are elevated. I know you can't see it, but my heels are flat, so it pulls those toes up and gives me even more tension in those calves. Good, now we're gonna do that same stretch with our feet flat and our back flat. So I'm pushing those hips back. I'm reaching for those toes, but I'm trying not to round my back in this stretch. Big thing is I'm trying to pull those knees in. I could easily accidentally just roll my hips out to the outside, but I want all of my hamstring stretched. So I'm almost pinched in for this hamstring stretch. Hold, push those hips back, roll, grip the ground, tripod foot pressure, stretch those hamstrings out. Breathe. And then we're gonna go nice and wide. So the first wide one we did was for groin, but now treat it a little bit more like a hamstring stretch on this wide one. Relax, breathe, 30 seconds here as well. Hold. So less trying to work into the splits, more trying to reach for that ground in this open position. Just show it at this angle as well. Push those hips back, reach for that hamstring stretch. Hold, good 30 seconds. If this is your issue and you're just like not even close on any of these hamstrings, maybe run through it a second time, go back through and do each leg. Or it's your calf and you got to do those heel elevated ones for all of them. Good, we went through all of the exercises except for 2 functional movement, mobility, range of motion exercises I want to show you, but we're just doing a cross leg, sitting and relaxing. I'm breathing into the stomach, not into my upper chest. I'm trying to relax, not feel it in my joints at all. We're just gonna go 30 seconds in this cross leg stretch. You could do butterfly. This might be way too easy for you. I'm kind of cheating because I can lean back. I'd rather you do it on the ground and have to support your own back. But I don't want crazy pain in the knee, so you might be up here at first. But this is a staple movement. You should be able to sit cross-legged unless you have some contraindications to it. So it's a good goal to work towards, to to make sure you have that type of mobility to be able to sit here. And then the last one, especially this one, is kind of the bar is set that you could hit at minimum 30 seconds in a deep squat. Deep is going to be specific to you and as an individual. What does your deep squat look like? If you don't even know how to squat right, I would say skip this and work in your resistance training on your squat form, and we can go over that together, a program that teaches the squat. But all we're going to do is knees out, hips back, chest forward, dropping those glutes down. My toes are slightly pointed out. I'm pushing those hips back and I'm holding this deep squat position for 30 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and show it this way too. Here, I'm trying to maintain a pretty flat back. We're not weighted, so it doesn't matter if you're like perfectly flat, but 30 seconds should be a good test. And if you're working through this video a couple times a week, each time you do it, try to get it 35, 40, 45, a little bit longer each one. Breathe and stretch. All right, nice job. That's my 25-minute full lower body static stretch routine. And like I said, I like to use this in addition to a well-rounded training program, conditioning, cardio, weight training, prehab, rehab, active warm-up. And if you're in the market for one of those programs, just reach out, call me. I have a ton of programs for a ton of different levels, and we'll just see if I have the right one for you. And then if you need any of the equipment, that yoga mat, the link's down in the description below. And good work. I hope you feel as good as I do. You can rewatch this video, run it back later today, or do it a couple times each week. But it just makes sure you don't hit any or miss any muscle group. Everything should be nice and loosened up. And it's easy to just zone out and follow me, hopefully. Good work. Thank you, and keep watching.